FlightScope Mevo Plus is the ultimate indoor and outdoor golf launch monitor and simulator. It gives you the club and ball data you need with the accuracy you demand. Mevo Plus comes with ownership of simulated golf courses for you to play and practice at home. Mevo Plus is an essential golf partner to help you improve and understand your game better. Put more purpose in your practice. To learn more and get your Mevo Plus, shop now at flightscope.com.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for joining our webinar on Pro Package Explanation and Application. I'm one of your hosts, Jordan Vogler. I'm a content and application specialist for FlightScope. And the man to my left, he needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's a former PGA Tour player. He's a world-renowned coach, teaches the best players on the PGA and LPGA Tour and elite amateurs all across the country, Mr. Grant Waite. Grant, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. I look forward to this.
And we think you are the absolute perfect person to enhance our knowledge on Pro Package, the data, how to use it, and how to apply it to your game. So thank you so much again for joining us. Again, everybody, thank you for watching. If you can submit your comments, we're going to get to those comments at the very end, and Grant's going to help explain any questions you might have. So get into those comments right now. Grant, during our last webinar, we had several individuals comment and say, you know, I love the Mevo Plus, I love the Pro Package data, I just don't understand the data and how to apply it to their game, which is one of the key reasons to understanding the data with what we offer. You know, people can get overwhelmed with all the Pro Package data, but hopefully through this deep dive, they'll get a better understanding of what that data is and how they can use it. We're going to look at what the Pro Package data that you get with. We're not going to go through every single one of these data parameters, but this is exactly what comes with your Pro Package add-on. You get face to path, face to target, dynamic loft, club path, vertical swing plane, horizontal swing plane, low point, vertical descent angle, curve, speed, club speed profile, and club acceleration profile. We're not going to cover all those, but as we get into this next section of explanation, Grant, we're going to look at the key data parameters that I think most of our users are probably going to be using in their coaching, fitting, or just their overall improvement. So we're going to go into club path, face to path, and face to target. Why is it so important to understand what those data parameters are?
Well, those three specifically, that explains ball flight, right? It's three-dimensional ball flight. So to understand every shot you hit, the ball's going to go somewhere, right? So if you look up and the ball's doing something, you have no idea what's causing what do you change to get the ball flight the way you want? It's impossible, right? So you got to guess and you try the next thing, and I read this on Golf Digest, or I read this, or saw this on the internet, and you try that, it doesn't work. But if I said to you, hey, every shot that you hit, it does go somewhere, and there is a real explanation as to why the ball went where it went based on the conditions at impact. So if we look at the data that we're looking at to explain that is going to be, you make a collision with a golf ball with the club head, with the face. So we know that the face angle has effect. We also, there is a movement to this club. It can move left and right, or straight, or up and down. So there's a movement to that club, so that's going to affect the ball flight. And then there is some loft component, which is also affecting it, and then there's some angle of attack, which we'll get into. So it's very important, whether you're a teaching pro or you're an amateur trying to understand this very complex game, there is a way to make it simpler if you just understand the basic concepts of ball flight, that you can make your improvement much quicker because you know what you're trying to work on to change to get the ball to do what you want. Because ultimately, you can only play this game well if you can hit it somewhere near where you're aimed as best you can. There's variation to it, but those three parameters will explain the ball flight for the most part.
Yeah, one question people might be having is, you know, they see the word pro in front of Pro Package and they're saying, I'm a 20 handicapper. No way I fit into that bill of being able pro to use this data, but you know, everybody can benefit from this, whether you're a tour pro or a regular amateur.
Well, I'd actually make the argument that the tour pros are always pretty good at the moment at kind of getting the ball where they want to go. They may refine it, might get a little more sophisticated, hitting different shots, or understand when they're not quite on. But I would actually make the argument that amateurs and people who are passionate about this game, or no matter their handicap, if they want to improve, will get more benefit out of this, or as much benefit as a touring pro, because it then explains the game to them, explains what that ball is doing, and then they can start making changes, try to make changes to the golf swing. They create fields in their golf swing, and the ball starts to react a certain way, but then they know why. So the complexity of the game starts to dissipate for them. You know, and if you, to be fair, right, if you take a complex game like this, and it can be made simpler, but if you just leave things out by omission, you actually make it more difficult. So what we're trying to do here in FlightScope, is why I'm always glad to be with FlightScope, is we're trying to demystify this game so people understand the game. If you can understand it, you can kind of know what's going on, you can enjoy it a little bit more. And so I'm always excited to explain things to people the best that I can in order to help them enjoy this game, play the game a little bit better, and make the game of golf a lot more fun for everybody.
And speaking of the club path, face to path, and face to target, for me, I'm more of a visual learner. And we got some really awesome props that we can utilize to show what those parameters look like.
Yeah, okay, so good. Well, as we get into that, I think the visual representation, words are words, right? But what does those words actually mean? If you have a visual representation of that, I think that's going to help everybody that's tuning in, and the explanation makes more sense.
And being around you for the short amount of time that I have been, you know, one of the two main data parameters that you really seem to focus on the most is horizontal swing plane and vertical swing plane. And the audience might have no clue what those are, but I know from being around you and Jody, that's one of the first things you tell us to pop up on the swing. I want to see horizontal swing plane.
Yes.
So you can give us an example of like what is.
Okay, so horizontal swing plane. So if you think about the golf swing, most amateur, or every player, whether you're amateur or professional, you can feel your swing where it's going, right? So that's, if you think of that, that's the overall swing that you're feeling, and it's on the horizontal plane. So that's on the ground, that's horizontal, vertical, coming straight up. So let me grab just something like this. So the horizontal swing plane, if you think about it, is this on the ground, and it's going to point somewhere. Now my swing, if this is directly at the target, for example, it can go directly at the target. It could go to the right, or it could go to the left. That's horizontal. Vertical swing plane, of course, because it has a vertical component, is how vertical that swing plane is to the ground as you're coming through. So people say, well, what's important about that vertical swing plane? It has huge ramifications based on how your angle of attack is, how vertical swing plane, on the calculation of how it's shifting the path, and we'll show that coming up. So people, because the path number is the result of many things. It's the result of your angle of attack, it's the result of the horizontal swing plane, the vertical swing plane, it ends up at some number, but you never know what that number is. Was I 4 down on that swing? Was I 3 up on that swing? You don't know, so you don't know how that path number is moving, which we'll show here in a little bit, but you can feel the horizontal swing plane. So if you're creating path one direction or the other too much, instead of thinking, well, you've got to shift your path, which no one can feel, I talk about the horizontal swing plane, this overall direction that this horizontal swing plane is pointing through that impact zone, and people can kind of feel that. So when they know that, and then they know how the path is formed, it makes more sense to them, okay? Because nobody actually knows on every swing exactly how much they hit down or up. Do I hit 3 up, 4 up, 2 down? Who knows, right? Okay.
Awesome. And we talked about this in our own personal conversations. Low point, you know, before I was even in the golf simulator industry, I was a teaching professional, nowhere near on the same level as you. We talked about a lot of amateurs that really just blew my mind was they did not know it was you make contact in front of the ball. They always said, I'm hitting behind it. I thought that's what you're supposed to do. And it just blew my mind that it wasn't just brand new golfers. It was, you know, golfers that are like 2015 handicaps that still thought, oh, I need to hit it before. Actually, after, not before.
So let's just talk about this a little bit. And this is an 8-iron, but this is true for all clubs. When the ball is on the ground, the sweet spot's not on the leading edge. It's somewhere up about the 3rd or 4th groove, something like that, based on the club. So in order to present that sweet spot right here to the ball, right, you can't, if you're coming in too very low like this, when now the ball's on the ground, you're coming in very shallow, and you start to hit up, you're going to hit below that. You're going to hit the leading edge, right? Because the ball's on the ground. You can't get the club underneath. You have to go under the ground and then come up. You can't do that, right? You hit it behind the ball. So there is some angle of attack like this. It means you're going to hit the ball. Well, it's still going down. Now the low point is just the lowest point in the swing before it changes direction and starts going back up the other way. So whenever there's a ball on the ground, except maybe a 3-wood or something, where you can get close to level, you're going to hit down, which means the low point is forward. I also ran into the fact that people thought, well, the lowest point of the swing is the golf ball. That's the bottom of the swing.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's before the bottom of the swing. So if I'm still going down when I'm hitting the golf ball to present the sweet spot to the ball, there are some ramifications to that when we start talking about angle of attack and the path numbers and all that. So, but once you know that, then you go, oh, well, therefore when I'm making my swing, I have to be able to make my swing so that I'm going enough forward that the low point is going past the ball. If I stay here, especially when the ball's on the ground, I could start hitting too far behind the ball. Yeah. And if you don't have good contact in this game, good luck. The ball's just not going to fly right. So.
And then we're going to look at another one. It's dynamic loft. Now, people might, I think that's one of the key pieces that people should look at most, but they just totally disregard dynamic loft.
Yeah, so let's grab this, for example, and we're going to put this on the club face. Again, this is an 8-iron. So if we can see this, from down the line view here, this is pointed up at the sky, and this is normal to the club face, we would say. It's coming perpendicular to where this pointed. So it's pointing up in the sky. Now, the static loft of various clubs, like you got a 60-degree wedge, then static loft is 60 degrees. But are you presenting 60 degrees at impact when you're actually swinging dynamically? So dynamic loft just means in motion. What is the loft presented at impact? Is it the static loft of 60 or it's less? So we know, for example, with this one, if I lean the shaft a little bit forward, you can see that that static loft comes down to some dynamic loft that's less. Now it turns out the demands for hitting wedges, for example, or short irons, or most balls off the ground, we know we have to hit down, present the sweet spot to the ball. The best way to do that is to have a little bit of shaft lean. So that's taking some of that static loft and presenting a dynamic loft that's less than the static loft. So dynamic loft is just simply the loft that is presented at impact when you're swinging in a dynamic manner. So it is definitely not the static loft. Now, the opposite of that is a driver. So the ball's teed up. So the ball's now not on the ground. So with that, we can swing up, we can swing down, we can swing level. We've got all kinds of options there. There are some that are better for efficiency. Some people swings produce down, up. We ideally would like up to be able to launch the ball and get most efficiency out of the transfer of energy from the club to the ball. But with the driver, it's got a big head to it. The center of mass is further back. So that's always trying to line up with the force at the handle. So the club goes into deflection, which is simply the club bending forward. Most people think it's lagging back, but it's not because the handle's slowing down. And it starts to present a loft to the ball, which is actually more, in most cases, than the static loft. So you'll have an 8-degree driver, 9-degree driver, and launch it at 13 degrees. That's complete opposite to something, a ball that's on the ground. You always launch it less than that static loft. So it's the demands of the club, what club you're doing, is it teed up or is it on the ground? What am I trying to do with trajectories and all this kind of stuff? So just always remember that just dynamic loft is not the static loft, it's just the loft presented at impact when you're making your motion, so therefore it's dynamic loft.
And the next parameter, one of my favorite ones that I focus on in all my practice sections is angle of attack. And we had this conversation. A lot of my buddies back home, they think that their angle of attack should be, they should make the same swing for their irons and their driver, but that is not the case. And
no, it's definitely not the case. And now,
that.
it's a bit of an explanation to this, and this is, we need to talk about this before we kind of go to path, right? Because this is part of the formation of the path, right? So let's grab this, that little hula hoop, which is a good way to explain all this. I'll just keep an 8-iron here. So from down the line, if I said this is vertical, so now I have all up and down. There is no out or in and out. It's just going up and down. So this is straight vertical. Now if I was to put that on the ground, now I have all out and around. There is no down, right?
Yep.
So we don't play on this horizontal plane, and we don't play on this strictly vertical plane. What we play and we swing a golf club on is some area in between. And this is this vertical swing plane that we have, which is kind of measured, if you, easiest way, it's like from your knee to your knee. Now, if we're going, we'll go this way here. As I'm swinging, this club head on the ground, visual representation would be here, visual equivalence. I'm coming into the ball. This club is going down, but at the same time it's also going out because it's got to go out to the ball. So it's going down and out, down and out, down and out, down and out. Hang on, let's move this over so I can hit the ball to here. Down and out, down and out, down and out. Now we know we're going to hit before the low point, so the low point's past the ball. So we're still going to go down and out, hit the ball goes down and out to some point, and then it changes direction, level, up and in, up and in, up and in. Mm-hmm. So angle of attack is how much I'm hitting down this direction as I come into impact. So the angle of attack is just the angle of attack of the sweet spot or the club head here, moving down into the ball as it's hitting. Now the driver, it's the opposite. We're coming down here, and we obviously we want to get to the low point, and then we start going up. When it's going up and in. But we want to hit this after the low point, so we want to hit the driver because it helps us launch the ball in the air, right?
Yeah.
So this angle of attack, based on the club, changes. If I'm hitting a wedge or a driver, I'm going to be 8, 9 down with a wedge, and I can be 3, 4 up with the driver. So if we said that's literally 13, 12, 13, 14 degrees difference, well, then the swing has to be different. Mm-hmm. So in my world, when I'm coaching, back in the day, you would say in the early parts of golf, before people really understood this, there was this idea you make one swing for every club. You just learn and away you go. So you're either a good driver of the ball, or you're a good wedge player, or a short iron player.
Yeah.
It was hard to do both. And I played in an era where I played against Greg Norman, who was one of the greatest drivers of the golf ball I've ever seen. And he clearly hit it really high, really far, and everything with the driver was great. And he's one of the greatest players ever played. But the best driver, and I didn't play with Jack Nicholson a couple times, and he was a great driver of the ball as well. And the same thing, hit it very, very high. Both were not so good with their wedges. So Greg struggled because he hit the wedges too high. So that means he was too much like a driver with a wedge, and so he hit it too high and then lost control of his distance. Now, conversely, you'd have guys who hit more down with the driver, didn't drive it as efficiently, but were really good with the wedge play because they're making the same swing. So in today's game, though, we now understand it using flight scope and all of this, that we can now measure what's going on. We know how to adjust the swing, so we have the appropriate angle of attack for a wedge and the appropriate angle of attack for driver, and just make some adjustments to your swing to do it. And that's what's happening. This is why players keep getting better and better and better, is that the knowledge is out there, and we have like flight scope in order to measure this, and we just keep adjusting till we get the things right. And there's no reason not to anymore, because we don't have to guess.
Exactly.
We can just actually measure it and make adjustments to do it.
Yeah, and that's the best part. There is no guessing. It's measured data that you can have at the tip of your fingers that can give you every single thing you need in order to improve your game or to become a better fitter or a coach.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're not driving the ball well and you just look at your numbers and like, oh, I'm hitting down too much, or my pass going over this way, or whatever the case may be, you just say, okay, I got to now work on the things that will change that. You work with your golf coach, or if you have your own ideas, fine. Work with your golf, and you just measure it. And are these things helping or are they not? And but you know the parameters for it. We know with the driver we want to be about this, and then the wedge we want to be about that, and you just keep doing it. So this angle of attack here is that simply what it is. Now, when it comes to the formation of the path, do you want to talk about that, or you want to leave that for?
No, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's go into this face-path relationship, because that explains the ball flights, basically the D-plane stuff. So face, we would say, and I'm comfortable saying this, and I think at Flight Scope we are here too, that we're saying approximately 75% of the start line of any golf shot is the face angle, right? So every shot you hit starts somewhere, right? It's either going to start straight, it's going to start left, or right. I don't know where, there's not a fourth option there, right? So that means what's starting the ball, right? Back in the day when I learned to play, it was like, oh, it's the path of the club or the swing that's starting the ball. Right, but it turns out that's incorrect. It's actually the face, and 75%. So it's not exactly 100% of it, but we would say that's enough of a number to say that wherever that face is pointed, that's approximately where the ball's going to start. And I'm very comfortable saying that, right? A driver, the number's higher. It goes up into the 80s, something like that, right? So it's even more important where the face is pointed. You can see the start line. So we know, no matter what, we have one variable we can understand at all times. Just where did the ball start? That's where that face is pointed. Now, like you know, and every other golfer that's out there knows, not every shot starts on some line and goes dead straight.
Correct.
It usually has some curve to the ball.
Yep.
So it can start anywhere, left, right, or straight, and it can curve left or right. So what's making the ball curve? So for the face is the start line, something's making it curve.
Correct.
What is it?
It's the path.
So if we look at this, we said, okay, I set up, I'm with ping, so if we have the ping man there and we set him up and we have laser perfect, this face at impact is directly at the target, all right? So the ball, first question is, where did the ball start? If the face is pointed there, it's going to start at that target, right? Now, we have a path number that's associated with this, because we're talking face and path here, the elements of ball flight. So that path can either move, if I'm looking this way down the line, this can either move straight, it can move to the right, or it can move to the left. So if I go this way so people can see it, so I'm congruent here, it can go to the right, straight, or left, right? The movement of the sweet spot of that club, independent of where the face is pointed, okay? So if I have the path, the way that's formed, and then the face directly in line, and the face is pointed at the target, the ball's going to start at the target, and the ball's going to go straight because there's no differential. Now, we then take the next ball, we keep the face directly at the target here, but we make the movement of the club, the path, to the right. First question is what? Where did the ball start? It will start where the face is pointed. So it basically starts at the target or pretty close to it. Now the movement of the club is to the right, and the ball will move away from the path. So now the ball starts at the target and curves to the left. Great. Next shot, face angle, exactly the same, laser perfect at the target. We get the movement of the club to the left, which is the path. First question, where'd the ball start?
Started at the target.
At the target, well done. And then it gets started at the target, and then the ball moves away from the path, so now it goes to the right. So if we're hitting like a driver, we've literally got balls that could be 80 yards apart. The face angle never changed. Stayed directly at the target. So what curved the ball? It was the path relative to the face. The face never changed. So when you're seeing every shot you hit from now on, or any of the golfers here that are trying to learn, if you're trying to understand ball flight, one variable you can get correct automatically is where did the ball start? That's why it's always the first question. I get phone calls from players playing on other LPGA or PGA Tour or wherever they're playing, good amateurs non-stop. Like, hey, look, I'm really hooking the ball. And I'm saying to them, well, you might as well be talking Chinese to me. That doesn't mean anything, right? You're hooking the ball. My first question to them is, where did the ball start? So if they're saying, well, it's starting straight and drawing, well, we got a face angle issue because it's starting too straight, because a functional draw has to start to the right and turn back to the target, or a fade starts to the left and turns back to the target. So I need to know that. And they go, oh, well, yeah, it's starting on line and drawing. Well, we got a face angle problem. No, it's starting to the right nicely, but it's hooking too much. Well, now we've got a path problem because the ball, too much of a differential between the two, the path's going too far to the right, the ball curves away from it, and now going over to the left. To solve those questions or those issues is completely different based on the player that's in front of me, but a face issue and a path issue are two different things. So if we said, depending on how much we can get into this, right, this movement of the club, what is the things that go into this movement of the club going through impact? Is it if it's going to the right, left, straight, right? We've got some things that are going on. Okay, so we have, like we said earlier, we talked about that horizontal swing plane on the ground. This represents that. The overall swing can be going straight at the target right here. Now remember, we're still going down if the ball's on the ground, so we are going up, so we're going out. So we're going down and we're going out. Now the vertical swing plane, so the vertical swing plane is some amount that this is how vertical this is. So a driver is going to be about 45 degrees, 50 degrees, something like that. Now, if we say it's 45 on a triangle on the ground, just so people understand this, right? This is basic high school math. It forms like this, right? So we know this angle here is 90 degrees. The total of this has to total 180 degrees, right? So with a driver, if this is 45, this is 45. 45 and 45 is 90, 90, 90 is 180, we're good, right? Math works, beautiful thing. So if I said with a driver and I grab the driver out, that means the ratio is the same. This is at some 45-degree angle, like this as I'm coming down. So for every degree down that I'm coming, it's going 1 degree that way, because they're equal. One down is 1 out. Come into impact, every time I'm going down 1 degree, it's still going out. If I get to 0, where it's no longer going down, it's not going out, it's going straight.
Yeah.
Now for every 1 degree up I'm going, it's going 1 degree to the left, right? So if you're hitting down, level, or up, it's moving the path appropriately. So 3 down on a 45-degree vertical swing plane, if I'm coming down, let's say 3 degrees, it's going 3 degrees out at impact if I make impact at 3 degrees down. If I'm going 3 degrees up, the path is going 3 degrees to the left. This triangle here, 90, 45, 45, means that's how it works. It's just triangles, math, right? So now if I go to a 6-iron, it's a 7-iron, but let's pretend it's a 6-iron. I use that because it's, let's say 4 down is an appropriate number. So that means for every degree down I'm going, it's going 0.6 degrees out because the vertical swing plane's around 60, something like that. Not exactly, but we'll just say it's close enough. So for every degree down, it's going out 0.6. Even though my swing is straight, 0, the horizontal swing plane is 0 at impact, it's going out based on how much down I have. So if I hit 4 down, that's 0.6 for every degree. That's 2.4 to the right. I'm still going out. This movement of the club is going out with a straight swing. So now I'm creating a rightward path with a swing that feels straight. So we've got some problems here, right? If I've been told that I've got to set up dead square railroad analogy, where my feet are square, this is square, and I'm going to swing straight, and I'm going to hit the ball straight, what's the problem? If I'm hitting down 4 degrees, I've got a path going to the right, the ball will curve away from the path, now I'm hooking the ball.
Exactly.
With a straight swing, because I have the down.
Yeah.
That was unaccounted for years and years and years. That's the third dimension that we couldn't see on a video. You can see kind of the direction, what's going on the horizontal swing plane, but you cannot see the down. How much down? I don't know. Each swing's slightly different, right? So in order to hit the ball straight, with that analogy, if we want to hit it straight, we'd actually have to aim slightly to the left so that the horizontal swing plane is now going to the left. The down shifts at 2.4 degrees to the right, so technically I should aim 2.4 degrees to the left. Now at impact, the path is straight. It matches the face that's straight at the target. Now I've hit a straight shot. The science of hitting a straight shot is I have to account for the down. If you're hitting a driver and you got the up, I now have to account for the up because that's shifting to the left. So what do? Right? You just have to know what club you're hitting. You have to kind of understand the angle of attack, what the effect the path is. So that path number is not just the movement of the club, because it can be going straight at the target but still going out. You have to know your angle of attack. You have to know your vertical swing plane. If you know those things, and it's not hard to learn, you just know that, oh, I'm about 4 down with this club, I'm about 6 down with this one, I'm 3 down with this one, I'm level with that. You can start moving yourself around to hit a straight shot if that's what you want. But if you want to hit a draw, you just know that you got some down that's helping you. Or if you want to hit a fade, you have to account for the down that's still trying to push the path to the right, but you've got to create a left path. Because remember, the ball curves away from the path. So you have to make these adjustments. And this is where someone who really understands this information and the average golfer can start making sense of things. I've been told to set up straight, but I keep hooking this ball. I don't understand. I must be doing something wrong.
Exactly.
What is it? You actually make it a pretty good swing. You're just creating path to the right because of the down. So this is examples of how instruction and information can change 100%. How you see things. And then you make appropriate choices accordingly. So in my estimation, I would say not only is the railroad track analogy wrong, I would say every tournament that's ever won on the PGA Tour has been won by people aiming somewhere other than the flag to get the ball to go to the flag. If I'm hitting a draw, the ball has to start to the right and draw back to the flag. If I'm Jack Nicklaus, hits fades, every ball has to start left and work back to the flag. Should he aim at the target? No, because if he's hitting a fade with hitting down with an iron, he has to aim enough to the left
to account for the curvature.
To account for the fact he's got down pushing the path to the right, but he still needs a left path So he has to change where he's aiming in order to play. So if you stand on the PGA Tour or really good golfers and you just look down the line and you're watching them, some are aiming over here, some are aiming over there, so they're all over the place based on the shot they're hitting and their tendencies in their swing. But good amateurs or amateurs, if they learn this, they can understand how Fred Couples aims over here, John Cook would aim over here, Lee Trevino's over here, Jack Nicklaus is over here, Sam Snead's over here, or Tiger Woods when he's hitting a draw is aiming over here. They're all aiming in different places. You look at Scotty Scheffler, he's all over the place with stuff, but he knows based on the shot he's hitting what to account for in his swing. And that's just not because he's smarter than everyone else. He just understands this, and we can make sense of it if we have a way to measure it. So remember, the path is the result of a number of things. Angle of attack, horizontal swing plane, and then the vertical swing plane that's calculating the amount of down and out that's going on in a golf swing. Now, hopefully, that made sense to everybody. It's
100%.
that's what's going on, right?
You know, we discussed feel versus real too. You know, a lot of people say, well, I feel like I'm swinging out to the right, but it's not showing what it's out on the course. You know, having a launch monitor like Mevo Plus with the Pro package, it takes all the feel out of it. You can understand exactly what your shot is doing and why it's doing it.
Okay, so I'll actually have a contention there, what you said. It takes the feel out of it. I think it creates feel. I do. Because if I say, okay, I want to swing out to the right, for example, and I'm like trying to swing out to the right, I have this feel, and I may go out to the right, but how much am I going out to the right? It could be too much. But if I say, okay, I want some parameter to draw this ball, I want a path of, let's say, 2 or 3. Let's say that. Okay, I need to create that path. Well, on a 6-iron, on a good player, you're hitting down 4 degrees, maybe 5 degrees. So you get about 2.5 or just a little bit more out. Well, do I want to swing more out? If I want 2.4 degrees or 2 to 3 degrees of path, I actually don't want to swing out, right? But so if someone's not creating path because their swing is, for example, coming, amateurs coming over the top like this, we can talk about that. What are the things that go into a swing that starts to bring this more in line, and we can use the angle of attack with an iron in order to be able to learn to hit a draw appropriately. So, right, so to me, it then creates the feel of what I'm trying to do, and I always have a way to do it. So let's hit a couple shots. Can you hit some shots, and we'll go over this, and we can go over it. I always said that the path number should almost be named resultant path, because it's the result of everything. And people get path and they get this horizontal swing plane confused. They're two separate things. The horizontal swing plane is part of forming the path. The path is a result of that. It affects it, but it's not the path, right? The path is a number of things that go into it. Okay, so let's say, for example, what shot do you want to hit? I mean, okay. So you're a draw bias player.
I am a drawer of the golf ball.
Okay, what club you going?
I'll use that 7-iron.
Okay, so you're a draw bias player. So let's make it because we're online having a webinar.
Let's try to hit a draw.
Well, let's actually make it harder for you. And because remember, it doesn't matter what actually happens. It's the discussion of the information that goes on. So because it's harder for you, we'll try and do some things. You want to do that, or you'd rather just hit a draw? Okay,
let's try to hit some fades.
Hit a fade.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of my questions before we get started is, you are using the same exact data that you would use for a 20 handicapper versus your tour pros that you coach, correct?
Well, okay. So physics on this planet govern life itself. This planet orbits the sun for a reason, right? It's just physics. So physics applies to you. It applies to Tiger Woods. It applies to Jack Nicklaus. It applies to Scotty Scheffler. To me, to the lady down there on the range, it's all the same. Physics is physics. The ball goes where it goes for a very specific reason based on those parameters of impact. And the golf ball couldn't care less who's hitting it.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter if I'm coaching you, tour player, the complete beginner. Physics is the same.
Correct.
So I use it for everyone.
Awesome.
And I just think it's very important people understand that. There's nothing mystical that the pros are doing here. It's called Pro Package, for example. And which is true, because it's a lot of information in there, but it applies to everyone equally, regardless of skill level. Okay.
All right, well, let's try to hit a fade.
Okay, let's do it. So what are we doing just on the front end? So what do? We have a start line to the ball. So we have to be a functional fade, it's got to start to the left.
To the left.
And then we need a path that's further left than that for the ball to curve away back to the target.
Correct.
Okay, so that's our goal. Away we go. All right, So, well, very good. So we got a ball that
We
did
got the
what?
path left.
So what do we got?
Yeah.
We got the faces to the
Correct.
left. Great.
Yes.
And we've got a path that's to the left. Great.
Yes.
The problem we've got
face.
is that we've got the face here 4 degrees to the left.
Correct.
Right, so it's 4 degrees this way.
Yep.
But we got the path the club path is only 1.4 to the left. So the face is left of the path. So the ball's
Yes.
going to curve away from the path, so it starts left and curves further left.
Yeah.
So right here fantastic, right? So here's what we've got. We've got a path of 1.4 to the left. Now you notice that the H-plane, horizontal plane,
Yes.
is more left.
Correct.
Because we have some amount of down that's taking the path number and pushing it more to the right. But we still got a resultant path
Yep.
to the left. Great.
Great.
The problem is the face to that path is actually shut.
Yep.
So it's more left than the path.
Correct.
So now it starts on that, and again, it's going to curve away from the path, so it's going to go to the left. So we got 2 of the parameters there
Yep.
correct. We actually got them correct, but we got the face to path
Yep.
incorrect. The face needed to be a little more to the right, or
Correct.
at least right of that path. So I don't mind the path number being 4. It's on the high end, but it gives you more playable
Yep.
face angles to be able to curve the ball back. So if you're a player who called me and says, "Oh, I'm trying to fade this ball and I'm
Yeah.
drawing it," again, it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm like, okay, well, where's the ball starting? You go, well, it's starting left. I know you've got a path problem, or you've got a face problem. So I'd go,
Correct.
is it starting where you want? You go, no, it's starting further left. Oh, okay, the face is too far left. Now let's do some face stuff. But okay, let's hit another one. But that's how you would decipher
Yes.
the information, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, for the audience might be asking, okay, what is the correct range that I should be looking for just an average of club path? What is the minimum and maximum I should be looking at?
Yeah, so it's going to vary a little bit from my perspective, right? Because on a short iron, I don't want to see a lot of curves.
Yes.
At the high level, if the pins are 3 from the edge or 4 from the edge, they're really tucked on the corners, and the wind's right to left, for example, on a right pin, you're right-handed golfer. If you start drawing the ball and you start it out to the right and you create a lot of path and you're drawing the ball, now it's going to ride the wind and curve a lot. But not only that, but sometimes you have to start it in the water or in a deep bunker you don't want to go
Exactly.
in. And it gets kind of mentally tough to do. So you need to be able to straighten that out. So I always like a number on my short iron that's pretty close to neutral. So I always like a slight draw bias, so 0 to 2 degrees is a good number. Anything in there you can play a short iron with. And you can go that through a 7 iron, and then you start to get a little bit more, 2 to 3 for like a 6 iron through 4 iron, something like that. And driver can be like, I'd say 3 to 4 max, something like that, because that gives you more playable face angles. So what do I mean by that? Okay, if I have a 4-degree path going out to the right, okay, so I can have a face angle that's 3 degrees to the right, 2.5 degrees to the right, 2 degrees to the right, 1.5 degrees to the right. The ball still starts to the right and curves. Now, the 1.5 is going to curve past the flag, but it still started where I wanted, and that's a playable face angle. It may just slightly over curve, but the fairway's got 40 yards to hit it in, so you can have room for some error, right? So same thing with an iron. If I've got 2.5 or 3 degrees of path, I've got a face angle that's 2.5, 2, 1.5, and that's going half degrees. But I got multiple in between that are all playable face angles that gives me a functional shot that starts to the right and draws back. So I always like to give a little bit of space in there. You can get too much because then the misses get too big.
Yeah.
If the face angle gets a little bit off, you get massive curves or whatever. But I think 0 to 2 on the short irons, 2 to 3 up through 5 iron or all the clubs on the ground. Driver, you can be a little bit more and still you'll have a functional curve and it's not out of control.
Yeah.
You start getting more than 4, it gets a bit rough.
Yeah, I was explaining, before when I was younger, I used to hit huge draws. I mean, even borderline hooks.
Yes.
And what I would do is if I started noticing it was going a little bit too far left, I said, okay, I need to get the path out a little bit more right.
Yeah,
then I'm getting 7, 8, 9 path out to the right. And if I accidentally square one up to that path, I'm off the planet.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's hit another one. Let's hit like 2 or 3 here.
Okay.
So we'll hit one more fade and we'll hit a couple draws, all right? Let's try to do it. Now, I know this is very difficult for you. So my estimation is we got to start to feel a release pattern that has the face a touch more to the right.
Correct.
Now, when you learn this, I don't care if the face is a little too far to the right and you kind of push fade it, because we got to get the face to the right of your path here,
Correct.
which is to the left.
And
right?
I know for me feeling, I know I need to get the face out to the right. I like to set it up just a little bit open at the beginning and then just aim left and just swing left.
Yeah,
like we discussed the other day is I need to feel like in this example, I need to swing out to the left side of the screen.
Yes. Aim left, but keep swinging left.
Correct.
Don't aim left and then try and swing at the target. That's defeating the purpose, right? Okay.
So let's aim a
do
little
it
bit
again.
further left than what I normally do, and I'm going to
Yes.
keep that face open.
Yep. So once again, we got the ball starting to the left, so this is correct on a fade, but the ball didn't fade back.
Yep.
But we got the path right, but the face to path, the face is still 0.5 left
Correct.
of the path. So that's a fairly straight shot, right? That's a fairly straight
Yeah.
shot.
And that was the better contact, and it felt better.
So, okay, so on this next one, without going into
Exaggerate
your
it.
swing mistake, I want you to get the face over to the right, right? And
We're
let's
going to
do it.
really exaggerate this one.
Yes. Well, that looked actually pretty good. Let's see what happens here. Okay, there you go. So now we've got, again, the horizontal swing plane is further left than the path because we got down.
Correct.
So that's pushing the path to the right of that. So we got a path of 2.8 left. But now we've got a face that's 3.5 degrees right.
right.
So
Yep.
that means that ball started approximately at the hole and actually went to the right.
Correct.
So for you, we would do face angle stuff because you're clearly getting the path to the left. 2.8 is a great number. So now it's about calibrating the face to the path. And then it depends on everyone's swing. You can do
Correct.
lots of different things with this and release points and all this stuff. But the point is, now you have a way to actually measure, am I improving?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, you want to try and hit a draw?
Yeah, let's hit the draws. This will be a lot easier. This will be a lot easier.
I'll be fair to you, right? Because I'm asking you to do the hard thing. Okay. All right. There you go. So easy for you, right?
Easy.
So now you've got a horizontal plane, 3.6 to the right. So you shifted. That is the overall feel of your swing is going more this way.
Correct.
Plus you have some amount of down. Now when you swing a little bit more to the right like this, it tends to shallow out the angle of attack. Fine, so you'll have less down, less pushing, adding to that horizontal swing plane. So when you do that, right, so the path number is still going to the right horizontal plane, but because it's so shallow, it doesn't shift as much. Remember, if you were 4 down, it's going to go 2.4 or 2 point something like that out. This is a little bit less, but that is correct. You've got a 4 path. So we would say, ooh, 7-iron, that's max.
Yes.
But that's still good. And then you've got a face to path that's 3.6 left. That means the face is left of the path.
Correct.
So it's going to start left and then it's going to draw because the ball's going to move away from the path. So we'd say, yeah, this is correct, the correct pattern, but you would just have to kind of,
just a little bit more on the extreme where you're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to refine that.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll hit one just a little bit.
Just
better.
a tiny draw. All right.
That one I felt like I was a little bit more inside. I think that path might be a little bit more. It's actually just a little bit less.
A little bit less. See? So now you're like a tour player, right? You're just adjusting accordingly.
Yeah.
This is great. And this is what you would do if you invest in this, which I would highly recommend, is that you'd play around with this with different feels and thoughts and what is the path number doing and what's the horizontal swing plane doing and what's the face doing and what's the curvature of the ball doing? What do I need to adjust? And if you don't know, just go get a lesson from a qualified professional or a coach. And he'll give you some suggestions. Everyone knows this stuff now, so you'll make improvements, but you've also now got a way to measure what's too much, what's not enough. We've given you those parameters. 3.3, it's on the high end, but still good. We can play good golf from there. I've watched Tom Lehman probably with a path like that, hit the ball just fantastic for years, right? One of the best ball strikers ever. And you've got a face to path where it's 0.3 left. So it almost matches the path. So that ball's going to start to the right, and it's just going to kind of stay there, maybe draw a tiniest amount.
Yeah.
Very nice shot, right? But once again, you've created a right path, you created a left path, you've started a start line left and a start line right. This is exactly what you would do. You just play around with stuff, right? You don't have to be technically correct on everything. You just kind of play around with stuff. And now you create feels for that off of this information.
And I love how we started this discussion is a lot of people are asking, okay, I understand club path, face to target. Where do I start? And you gave us a great example. When you hit a shot, what's the first question we say? Where'd your ball
Should
start?
always be the first question.
Yeah.
Because of the two variables, that one we can understand because we can see where the ball started. When you're talking about a path number, remember it's the result of a number of things. It's hard to know exactly what that is, so you're guessing at all times. Your path number changed if you went a little more to the inside, hit a draw, it shallowed out. When you went this way and went a little steeper. But how much? I don't know. Well, let's just measure it. We have a way to measure that.
Correct.
Now we can understand what we're accounting for. So all of this stuff, the path number we can't really feel, but we can feel the overall horizontal swing plane, where is that pointed, and then the path number is part of that horizontal swing plane. The horizontal swing plane is part of that path number, and that's a result of a number of things, okay?
Let's go into angle of attack. We touched on it briefly. You know, we understand that the swing is not the same for an iron versus a driver. So as far as the range that we want to see for a wedge, 9-iron, 7-iron, up to a wood, what are the ranges that you would like to see from, you know, your tour players versus the amateurs that you coach?
So again, this is why golf's so great, right? Is that it's applicable to everyone in different ways.
Correct.
Right? So for example, let's take someone who hits it kind of on a little bit on the downside, let's say like a Dustin Johnson, right? So he wants to cut the ball. Now he's hitting down, so the path is trying to go to the right, but he wants to cut it. So he's got to swing left.
Correct.
Enough of his horizontal swing plane left to pull the path over to the left to cut the ball. But now he's swinging 120 miles an hour, whatever his club head speed is, it's really fast. And he's got a ball speed close to 180, something like that, high 170s at 180 degrees. So whether he hits down or up, he's going to push that ball through the air at some speed of 180 miles an hour. So he could launch this ball at 9 degrees, for example, just pick a number. I don't know what he does, but let's say he does it at 9. I know he's on the low side. That ball still carry 295 yards, something like that. He can play every golf course in the world. Or he could fly at 310 as fast as he goes. It's never going to be a restriction to him. But he's got a club head speed of 120.
Very fast.
Very fast. So if I coach Jody Shadoff, who I think is one of the best drivers of the ball in golf, men and women, because she's very consistent. She's very, very good. She has a club head speed of about 98 miles an hour when she's swinging good, something like that. She always wants to be faster. Fine, I do too, but we'll say reality is about 97.5 to 98.5, something like that. So she has a ball speed of about 145 miles an hour. Should she swing like Dustin Johnson? Should she hit down 2 or 3 degrees?
No.
Not possible.
Yes.
Right, she won't. She won't be able to carry the ball. So her angle of attack has to be different. So if she's swinging up and she likes to draw the ball, her swing is built completely different to swing up, but also get the horizontal swing plan over to the right, because the path is moving left of that, but she's still got to draw the ball. So she doesn't have to have enough out with her horizontal swing plane that the up from the path shifts it left, but still right of the target and hit a functional draw. So why? Why is this happening, right? So if I said to you, ball speed is what it is given a player's club head speed.
Correct.
Right. So we'll just, and these numbers, we'll just say, let's say it's 140 miles an hour. All right, well, let's go even slower. 120 miles an hour, that's your ball speed. That's your ball speed. We always want to go faster, but let's just say the reality is that's what it is. Okay. The spin rate on that ball, to be optimal, is designed by those manufacturers to be a certain spin rate.
Correct.
Okay. You don't want to spin it more, you'll start overspinning the ball, you'll lose distance. You don't spin enough, it doesn't stay in the air, it falls to the ground. So there's some optimal spin level there that we're trying to achieve. The ball speed is what it is. If we could swing faster, we'd already be doing it. So let's say it's 120 miles an hour, right? So how do I max out on this? So I have to launch the ball up in the air, like going this way, come down the line. I have to launch it at some angle here that's going to be ideal. So if you I did a video one time of a garden hose, and I pointed it. Yeah, right. So I pointed it, and if I just have it level like this, that water, which replicates your ball speed, is going to go some distance, and then it's going to hit the ground, and that's as far as that water will go. But if I start pointing it up, it goes higher up, so it carries further, and then it hits the ground. It goes higher again, it goes a little further, and then it hits the ground. And I go higher, and all of a sudden it's going too high. Now it starts hitting the ground in shorter, right? So we always want to maximize our carry distance and then our roll, get a landing angle of about 36 degrees, something like that. So we got to find what is the appropriate angle here that I get maximum carry but still get the roll, and that's going to be based on your club head speed. Now, if Jody's swinging at 98 miles an hour, for example, Dustin Johnson's 120, their launch angle by definition has to be different. She has to launch it higher, and she has to have the appropriate spin to get maximum efficiency or transfer of energy from the ball from the club to the ball. So in her case, you look at the smash factor of that, and she's always at 150. She's very, very efficient. When a lot of players on the LPGA. So if you actually understand that, the LPGA players on average launch every club higher than than the men, but the men's ball on average go higher because of speed.
Yeah.
Spin, they go up. So angle of attack is going to affect this launch angle, so the angle of attack is based on the player. So I would say anyone that's under 100 miles an hour, or even 105 miles an hour, they have no choice. You got to hit up.
Yeah.
And you got to deal with the fact that you got to hit up, and what's that doing to the path number, and you adjust your horizontal swing plane and you swing accordingly. So I would say if you're under even 110 now because of efficiency,
Yeah.
you would want to be swinging anywhere from 1 to 3 up, something like that. And if you're slower than that, you can go even more up. Now, a guy like Rory McIlroy can get sometimes 5 and 6
A
up.
lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
There are problems with that, right? Because it's very hard to swing that much up and get control
Yeah.
of that, your path number, because it's moving around a lot, right? But let's just say we would do that. Now, the faster you go, you can come down closer to your angle of attack being closer to level. And if you're fast enough, if you feel comfortable and you want to hit down, fine. I really don't care,
Yeah.
because that makes you feel like you can hit it straight. The ball's still going far up, it's fine. So the angle of attack for a driver, for example, has to be optimal based on your speed. You want to swing as much as you can up. The slower you are, that you still control the ball. When you get faster and faster and faster up to 100, over the 115, 20 mile an hour, you're going to lose efficiency, but you can kind of get away with it if that makes you feel more comfortable. But I would still suggest they hit at least level, maybe 1 up, something like that.
And, I've asked you this, probably the most number one question you get asked is, how can I hit the ball further?
Always.
So you're looking at angle of attack, and probably most of the time for an amateur, they're swinging down, so they're losing that efficiency.
Yeah,
So we
100%.
change, so you go from, okay, let's start hitting it up. You'll see increased carry distances and overall total distance.
Significance. I'll tell you just a quick little story here is, and we'll hit some drivers just to kind of have a look at this, right? Quick little story. We had we can hit drive, you got a tee?
Yeah.
Be good to do. So a quick little story here. I was working with a player on the PGA Tour, and he was hitting down 5 and 6 with the driver, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of like a 7-iron, right? I'm like, that's way too much down. But he had a lot of speed, and he could still carry the ball 285 yards, and it was great. So I managed to get him from 5, 6 down with the driver to his hitting 1 or 2 up. Same club head speed. Ball speed went up, his carry distance went 25 yards further.
Goodness.
And he just couldn't believe it. He was thinking he had to do all this training for swing speed and everything.
Yeah.
No, he just needed to be more efficient.
Yeah.
It's very important. Now, that's a driver, which we're going to hit a couple here, and we're going to look at those parameters, right? And then we'll see what's going on. A wedge, completely the opposite, like we stated earlier. Okay. All right. So we need angle of attack here. See what that is. All right. So angle of attack down there on the bottom right is angle of attack is 4.1.
Yep, pretty solid.
That is fantastic, right? So we've got 4.1 up.
Yep.
So we know if it's going up, the path is trying to shift left.
Correct.
So we look at our path number, and it's still almost a degree to the right.
Yes.
So what does that mean? That means that our overall horizontal swing plane had to be enough to the right
Correct.
that the up shifted the path, but still to the right. So our horizontal swing plane in this case would have to be around 3. Let's see if we can see it. Where are we? Horizontal swing plane, 3.8.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
right, exactly. The math is a beautiful
Yeah.
thing, right? So you got enough up here, but you've got enough rightward on the horizontal swing plane to still create a rightward path.
Yeah.
Now that's not a lot of path, and as a result, the ball went pretty straight because the face of the path was almost dead on.
Yeah.
So that's a nice shot.
I'll take that any day.
Any day of the week. So you got the efficiency of hitting up, and look at your face impact, which is vital on this thing, is you hit almost in the dead center. So this ball's going to launch where it does, where the face is pointing, because you're hitting the center. It's going to launch in the air because you're swinging up, and you're going to get transfer of energy here. The ball's going to carry max distance.
Correct.
And it's going to roll the appropriate amount, assuming you have the right golf ball.
Yeah,
Right?
and as we get into face impact, gear effect plays a huge part in this. I've heard a lot of friends say, I got a good, relatively understanding idea of where I hit the ball on the club face. Well, the average amateur have no clue where they're hitting on the club face and why. They can look at their path and face to path. Well, it might match up perfectly, like dead straight, but the ball is doing something completely different. They're sitting there thinking, Well, what's going on? Well,
Yeah,
it goes into gear effect.
Well, there's only two options
Yeah.
here. It's a gear effect, or you've got seriously mismatched clubs. But most of the time, it's going to be the gear effect. So you would check that. Now, if you're mishitting the face, left and heel or toe, well, okay, we got maybe some issues here. If you're coming into impact and you miss the center of the face with either your swing, and then, which I would say it would be, but if you're hitting the center of the face and the ball's kind of going all over the place, and you've got a mismatched set of clubs. So fitting, and I'm not an expert at fitting, as such, right? I kind of help the players talk through what we're trying to do in optimization of the ball flights. But the fitter is vital for them, because the hit location is you can think that you're making good swings, and you might be, but if you're not hitting it in the center of the face, you're going to have gear effect and all these things that we can chat about a little bit. And that's really, really important. So not only the parameters that we talked about, face to path, angle of attack, vertical swing plane, horizontal swing plane, all of these things, launch angles and spin rates and all that, are very important, but hit location is equally as important. I think it's overlooked,
Correct.
to be fair.
Well, let's switch to a 7-iron real quick. I'm going to hit 3-5 shots, and we're going to pull up the heat map with face impact location.
Great,
and I'd love to see, offer your thoughts, where you would start first. I know for me personally, I know based off my own golf game, my impact location is going to be toward the hill. So we're going to hit just three or 5 shots, pull up the heat map, and we'll dive deep into that parameter. That's a great one. That's a shank.
Well, almost, right?
Almost.
It's about as close as you can without actually shaking it. So so we would say there's a lot of issues there in terms of what the ball just did, right? So you're missing the center of the club, which is the sweet spot of the club, so you're not going to get transfer of energy. That's one. Two, when you're getting over to the heel and you're getting low like that, the ball's not going to get up in the air as much. Right, so that's an issue. And then you're going to have a minimal, you're going to have less gearing with an iron, but you're still going to have some gearing here, so the ball flight's not going to be as accurate as it would be face to path as if it was hit more in the center, right? So let's go again. So if someone said, I made a good swing, why is the ball doing that? I'm like, well, you really missed the center of the face by quite a bit here.
Quite a bit.
So let's do it again.
That felt a little bit more solid.
Oh, I hope so.
That's pretty dead on.
That's dead center. Well done. So we would say that's as close to a perfect strike as you could have. So then we would say, okay, we don't have to worry about where you struck it on the face. Let's look at the face pasta, and you got a 2.9 to the right. So that's great. So it's a draw bias, and we got a face to pass 3 degrees. So that ball started a little straight and probably drew over to the left. Fine, but we would say that the impact was good. So we don't have to account for a mishit. We could just say that ball did what it's probably what it should have done.
We'll hit one more, and then we'll pull up that heat map. That felt slightly on the toe.
Nope, there you go.
See, feel versus real.
That's exactly right. So, but see, again, this is very close to the center. You're not going to get much gearing off of that. We would then look at this, right? But if we just took those 3 shots, and you'd have more.
Correct.
And we overlaid those on, we have got some variability, just a little bit of variability that's going on there. That is definitely, we would look at, is it a swing issue or is it a fitting issue? Is the shaft, flexing, unflexing, drooping correctly, all of that stuff, is it too stiff? And there you go. Here's an example of a map where we've had a number of shots of a player. I mean, this is all over the place. It's all over the place. I mean, I don't know how you would ever club yourself correctly with that, because the distance is going to be so variable, and then the flight. So we would start looking at, is it swing stuff? Is it fitting stuff? It's probably a combination of both. People try to, fit their golf swing around a poorly fitted club. So I would always say, let's get fit, but let's do some golf swing stuff and try and get this a little bit more consistent. And this is contact issues, and that's what we would have. Yeah, look at that. Some good ones there, but there are some way out on
some horrible ones in there as well.
So there's too much variability. But you don't know that. Like you thought you hit it on the toe, and you actually hit it slightly towards the heel. And so now we're guessing.
Exactly.
So once we get into guessing, we've got some problems. I'd rather measure, and then we know for sure, make some adjustments, see what we can do. Right?
Well, awesome. And like I said, that's why I love the immediate feedback that this gets. Again, you can guess, but you guess is going to be off, like I've seen with what I just said. So to get that measured feedback and accurate feedback is important for a fitter or coach, you name it. So let's get into some user questions.
All right. Love it. Because this is things that are people that are dealing with golf out there that they want to have answered. And let's see if I got the answers for them.
Let me go back right here. Okay, so the first question we have in, the user says, I find myself just looking at carry distance and spin when using the Mevo Plus. Often feel slightly overwhelmed with the amount of data. How would you recommend a single handicap, mid handicap, and high handicap use the Mevo Plus to improve?
Yeah, okay, great question. So, and there are different demands for different skill levels, right? So we'll start with the higher handicap player. So face impact's a big deal because
Correct.
you can never get your flights right no matter what you're doing if you're hitting it all over the face, right? So if you can't hit the center of the face, I would start doing some things to get some consistency in your strike. So face impact, definitely. But ball flight is still a function of that face to path, that horizontal swing plane, vertical swing plane. So if you're, for example, a high handicapper is slicing it, I would definitely start talking to them, explain the ball flight laws so they understand why the ball's doing what they're doing, and saying, I would have to say no matter what, to draw the ball, you need a rightward path.
Correct.
So if I stood on the first tee of any municipal golf course or any golf course that's out there and I watch the average player play, they slice the ball.
Correct.
80% of the players slice the ball. And most of them have figured out, well, if I slice it, I got to start away to the left and go up. So if I said to them, the face is the start line, I'm already starting at left, and then I said to them, well, in order to draw the ball, you've got to just rotate the face. And well, they're already starting at left, now they're going to start it in Georgia somewhere, and who knows where it's going to go, right? So we would say that's not the answer. In order to draw the ball, you have to create rightward path. So I would start saying, okay, here are the things, the elements that go into a rightward path, right? And then you'd understand that horizontal swing plane. I want everyone to understand that number, because that's how I get my good players to control their path, by shifting that rather than, because you can't feel path. So one, hit location. Two, understanding the ball flight laws, face to path. That's very, very important, right? So you know what you're doing. If you want to draw the ball, you've got to know you need a rightward path. So you want path to face, and then you want where the ball's starting. Extremely important. There's a few other elements, but for them, that's where you would start. Then you would look at your angle of attack with it, because then you have to know how that path is formed. How much down am I hitting? If I'm hitting down a lot or I'm not hitting down enough, contact can get an issue. Those, I would just start there and get those under control. So as the player gets better, we're talking about sophistication of things, right? So we're talking about, again, face to path, all those D-plane stuff with horizontal swing plane, face to path, where's the ball starting, all of that. The spin rates and launch angles and distance, that becomes more of a lower handicap, something they should be looking at a lot, because they want to get efficiency out of there and they want consistency of that. In order to hit a 9-iron, for example, or a wedge, consistently the dispersion is forward and back, not left and right as a general rule. It's too short, too long, not left and right. So you would start looking at face angle, dynamic loft, getting the ball to launch correctly to get the spin rates right for those particular clubs. So a wedge, for example, a 60-degree wedge, if you just think to yourself, I'm going to launch it approximately 50% of the static loft. So if it's 60, you can try and launch this ball at 30. So your dynamic loft will be slightly above it, because the ball always launches underneath the top vector of that D-plane, which we'll get into, but it's going to launch. But just know if you launch it at that, you got really good friction going on the ball, you're going to spin the ball appropriately, and you can control your trajectories, you're going to do better. So dynamic loft and launch angle becomes even more important. So he's right, spin numbers, but the spin numbers is based on this launch angle and dynamic loft. So they're trying to get more efficient or technical or sophisticated, I would say is the right word, for ball flight. So based on your ability, one is just trying to make nice solid contact, get the path number right. The other is refining what you're doing so you can get a little bit more, I would say, dynamic loft, launch angles on all the short irons. What your angle of attack is it becomes really important. You already know how it's shifting the path to make sure that you get efficiency with that.
Awesome. The next question, this is a good one. How could I use the low point metric to ensure that I'm making ball first contact? It seems possible that my low point could be after the ball and that I'm still making contact with the ground before the ball.
Yeah, so that just means that even though you're hitting the ground before the ball, it's still going down as it goes past the ball to the lowest point. So you do have a low point or a contact issue, right? Even though the low point is actually, the lowest point is forward, you've got a contact issue. So that's telling you like, oh, I actually got this point good, but I'm coming down, or it might be tilting back, and hitting into the ground, but I'm still going down as I go into the ground through that ball. So you've actually got really a contact issue, not so much a low point. You got to get that contact point a little bit further forward, and then see what that low point does. Now the low point, based on the club, is going to be a little bit more forward based on a wedge versus like
Correct.
So you just know that club. But yes, so in his case, if he's coming down, he's hitting behind the ball, but the low point's forward, he's got some tilt, some release point problem, and I would start looking at that. So, but contact, again, if you don't have good contact, it's very hard to play this game, because the ball's got to go a specific distance. I'm hitting the ground, that you have loss of energy.
Yeah,
there.
very hard to play this game.
Very much so.
I think this is a really good one. How do I turn the flight scope data into information and translate it into an actionable practice activity?
Yeah, okay, so fantastic question, right? Because I do this with my players.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I was coaching, I had 2 players I was coaching yesterday and then again this morning. So one of them, we'll take Jody for example, Jody Shadow. She has a tendency to overdraw the ball, and it's usually the face is getting too square, too straight, and then the path is to the right, starts straight and goes to the left. And she does that, kind of more with the wedges and short irons than she does with the driver. Still does it, that's her tendency. So we were playing games. I said, okay, so our game here, and I set up flight scope, a Mevo Plus, and I said, all right, let's play a game here. I want the horizontal swing plane to the left, which is going to control our path number, which we want close to 0. But you've got to start the ball to the right. So you can't, we're not doing it with the swing, we're doing it with the face angle.
Yeah.
So she said, well, how do I do that? I go, let's just do it, we'll talk through this. So when she was releasing with the club, the butt of the club was back just a little bit, the face was just rotating over, starting left. So I said, okay, we've got to get the handle a little bit more forward, so it keeps the face before it kind of lines up with the handle. So we can hit this ball to the right without swinging out. So we played a game. We're going to have the next 10 balls. I don't care if it's 20 yards to the right. We're going to start the ball to the right, but here's the horizontal swing plane that we number, and here's the path number. So now you're setting up this like, this is my tendency. I'm going to have these parameters have to be this. This parameter has to be that. The goal is not to hit it at the target here, it's actually to hit it to the right of the target. So I'm one of these weird golf coaches, you could say, that a lot of the times I don't have my players trying to hit it at the target unless they're swinging pretty good or they're comfortable with what they're doing. Then we bring the target in and we start hitting towards the target. I'm trying to teach them a feel that's going to control the rotation of the face, for example, or the start line, and then I set those parameters accordingly. So you can say, okay, my angle of attack is too steep. Okay, here's the things I need to work on to get this angle of attack up. Let's play a game. I want to hit as much up as possible. Yeah. And you just use this to measure it. Otherwise, you don't know if you're actually doing it or not, right? So that's how you would use it based on what are you working on. I want to launch this wedge at 30 degrees. Okay, this is my goal. So I need a dynamic loft of about 45. I'm going to hit down about 10 degrees, 8 to 10 degrees or something like that. And say those are the parameters I'm going to use, and that's all I care. I don't care how far it goes. I got to get that right, then calibrate it to the target. So that's how you play games with this.
Here's another good one. Can you explain optimal face-to-path and face-to-target numbers for a tight draw for a right-handed golfer? I'm consistently between 1 to 3.5 degrees right as a right-handed golfer for face-to-path with a 1 to 4 degrees face-to-target left.
Okay, so what he's saying is, so he's got his face left and his path to the right. Yeah, so he just basically do what I just said. So I would say, okay, what we have to learn to do is get the face angle to the right without shifting the path number further to the right, because it's already to the right. So what people tend to do is they start saying, okay, I want to go to the right, so they swing more to the right, but the face angle is not necessarily going with it. It will a little bit, but now you're creating 5, 6, 7 degrees of path that's uncontrollable, right? So you'd say, okay, I got to shift this parameter. So when he's doing this, there is certain rotations that are going on with the forearm and the wrist, there's supination, and then there's the wrist angles changing. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So it's hard for a coach to say 2 degrees less of this, half a degree more of that. You can't do it. So if you got a way to measure, you put up Mevo Plus and you say, okay, we're going to get this face here to the right, and I don't care if it starts too far right, but we got to have the face going to the right, so this a release pattern. I can't rotate it over this way like this. I got to bring this come in a little bit more consistent, so I have to control this part here, and you just start to create feels. If they can't do it, I'll give them some feels in terms of rotation or what they're doing on the release pattern, fine, but that's how you would do it, right? And so I don't know his swing, so I don't know what's stressing the face to go to the left, I don't know, but we would say that there are ways to control the face. He just needs to have his local professional look at that, but if he has flight scope, he's a tremendous advantage, he can put it down.
Yeah.
I always love the accountability as a coach to have a way to measure what I'm saying to a player. It's either going to change or it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm okay if it doesn't change. I'll just try a different strategy. There's lots of ways to do this. It takes a bit of courage, but I'm like, okay, yep, that didn't work. Let's try this. I'm not changing concepts. I'm changing strategies based on that player to get them to do what I want. And there's a lot of strategies to do it. But that's how he would do it. He's got to do it without changing that path number.
Awesome. The next question.
He or she, sorry.
This is a good one. What is a good percentage of dynamic loft for an iron? I've read 75%. So a wedge at 46 degrees, you should look for 35.
So I always look at the launch angle of the ball as more so than this dynamic loft number, because it varies based on the speed of the player. So remember we said earlier with the driver you can hit up or down.
Correct.
And depending on your speed. The same thing comes with an iron, right? If I'm only swinging I'm a slower speed player, I still got to launch the ball higher than like a guy who's faster, because I still got to get that ball in the air.
Correct.
Spin is what it is, speed is what it is. It's going to fall to the ground. Gravity will pull it to the ground. So I want to launch it as high as possible, and I still hit the center of the face. So should I swing 5 down with a 6 iron, or should I swing 2.5 down with a 6 iron? Well, if you're slower, you want to swing 2.5, because the dynamic loft is king for launch. It's the number one, and then the angle of attack is associated with it. The more I hit down, the lower the ball will launch. The more I hit level, the higher it'll go, given the same dynamic loft, right? Because it's friction on the ball. Pulls that ball down or helps it launch up. So the answer is, I would say, if you said a good rule of thumb is with wedges, you're trying to launch it half of the static loft or slightly under that. So a 60 would be 30, 28 to 30, a 58, 27 to 29, something like that, so your launch angle. The dynamic loft to do it, right, would be based on how much am I hitting down, how much speed do I have. So it's hard to give exact numbers, but I would say all clubs, if you basically think of whatever the static loft is, you're getting pretty close to launching that ball about half. If you're slower, you want to go maybe a little higher. If you're faster, you can go a little bit lower. So you would adjust your dynamic loft and your angle of attack accordingly. Unfortunately, for golf, there is no one answer for everyone, but what we do have is we know enough about launch angle, spin rates, club head speeds, ball speeds, that we know we can adjust according to the player at hand. Because I cannot coach a Jody Shadoff or a Lauren Hartledge or Steph Kyriakou or any of the girls that I coach on the LPGA Tour the same as I would coach a player on the PGA Tour that I coach. They're different. Okay?
And here's a good one. Does a player's height impact their angle of attack, all things being equal? Will a taller golfer have a steeper angle of attack?
No. So that angle of attack is a number of things. Okay, so we can take a tall guy, for example, and he swings, shallows that club out, gets things going over to the horizontal swing plane over to the right, so he's pushing this path over to the right with that. It shallows him out, and he can hit a nice high draw. I can have a guy that's a little bit shorter, even though he's standing further away with the same length club, and he could be coming down steeper because he wants to cut the ball. So his angle of attack, when it starts going steeper, starts going down, he has to swing more left. So we would say there are some anatomical things that are going on here with taller, shorter, longer arms, shorter legs, all that stuff, for sure, that can play in this. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your angle of attack is different, but your vertical swing plane can change. Dan Forsman, for example, was a guy I played on tour with, won a few tournaments out there, very good player. He was very tall, extremely long legs, but a short body. So when he set up down the line, he always looked like he was bent over like this. And Phil Blackmar was the same way. And you had Ian Woosnam I played with, who stood more up like this. So you would say, yeah, he's going on an overall flatter plane, but the angle of attack could be different. So yes, it's a factor, but not the determining factor.
Perfect. One individual says, can you elaborate more on low point?
Low point.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just go through what low point is. Low point, here we go, from above here. All right. So here's the ball. Most people have thought that at impact, the bottom of the swing is actually where the ball is, but it's actually not. The lowest point is in front. So the lowest, with an iron, when the ball's on the ground. So it's coming down, 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 hit, keeps going down once the ball's gone to about here. Now that's the lowest point. It's no longer going down. It changes direction to level and then up, 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 up. So the low point is simply the part of the bottom of the arc here where it changes direction from down to level. That's the lowest point, and then it goes up. So low point for an iron or a ball on the ground is always going to be in front. So it's the bottom of the swing is not the golf ball, it's slightly in front of it. However, on a driver, we're coming in like this, we're coming down, we're actually lowest point is here because I have to now change direction and be going up. So the low point becomes back of the ball. So are you making the same swing? No, you're not, right? You can't be, right? So if you make a wedge swing with a driver, that's no good, or a driver swing with a wedge, that's no good either. You have to be able to adjust. So low point is simply doing that. Now why is, again, like I said earlier, the ball's on the ground, you've got to present the sweet spot, which is somewhere up around this third or fourth groove, let's say. It could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower based on the club, but somewhere around there. You have to present that to the ball. So you have to hit down enough to present that, but the least amount to hit down that you can to present that based on your speed. Slower, you need the least amount. If you're faster, you can get away with being a little steeper.
Here's a good one. What is the best way to control or modify angle of attack?
Angle of attack?
Yeah.
Very good. What are we hitting here? So
let's say for an iron or a driver.
Okay, we'll just we'll do the two extremes because it's easier, because we'll go a wedge and then a driver and everything's somewhere in between. Okay, so we know that again, we're going to hit down because we've got a wedge and we've got a 60-degree wedge, for example, and we're going to launch this thing at 30. I'm going to have a dynamic loft of about 45, something like that. I just use these as kind of general numbers. So I'm going to have about a 10-degree angle of attack, 8 to 10. Something like that, that gives me the appropriate numbers to launch this ball right. That's experience. Okay. So if that's the case, if I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to have this angle of attack and this low point forward, as I turn, would I be turning and I'm back this direction to hit? I'm going to try and hit the ground here, so then I'm going to start pulling my arms to get this out of the ground. So clearly that's not good because we need the low point in front of the ball. So now you start looking at the things in your golf swing that's saying, okay, I've got to get enough forward this direction like this, here, that as I turn, the club goes down and it gets to, I've pushed the low point forward because my pelvis and my body's gone this direction. If I spin too much, I'm going to be back. Now I have to do something to do it. So the easiest way is to say, okay, let me hit a few balls, learning to do this. Let's say you hit behind the low points too far back, would be you take some smaller swings somewhere out about here, what I call left arm parallel ground or P3. I'm just going to hit some balls where I just feel like I'm moving more forward this way, make contact and hit. And I'll be like, wow, I caught the ball first, I didn't hit back here. So there is some amount of forward that helps me go forward with the low point. Again, if I'm back, I have to do things with a handle to try and get it forward, and this is all very awkward, right? Now, a driver, so number one factor is lateral movement this way. If I start with my left shoulder here on some line, as I start back, I use the left shoulder. It's usually the center of the thoracic area, but I use the left shoulder. I want to see that go past that line when I'm coming down, and then as the shoulder rotates, it comes back to it. So I've gone far enough forward that when the rotation takes my body around, it's moving backwards, but I've gone far enough forward, I've got the low point forward. That's just a reference. You don't have to use, you can use something else, but I use the left shoulder. So I just draw a line down, go past that line, and then back to it with the rotation. Okay? Awesome. So now if I'm hitting a driver, it's a little bit different. I can have the ball a little bit more forward because I want to swing up, and I can turn. I'm not going to go this way as much because I don't want to hit down too much. So I've got to learn to be able to say, okay, I've still got to go forward because I want the path still going to the right. If I'm just spinning, it's going to go across. So I've got to learn to move appropriate forward, but not so much because I want the low point here and then hit up and then continue forward into my follow through. So how much that lateral motion becomes very important, or the slide. So that's a way to do it.
Awesome. And our final question is a good one. Is a good rule of thumb for the face to be 50% of the path?
No. Okay, that when we first started doing this, that I used to think that too. I'm like, oh, path is 4, face is 2. It becomes, some of the curves still get too big with that. So we would want a little bit less of that, or more, excuse me, a little bit more of that. So I started for example, a draw. If I've got a 3-degree path, I want about a 2-degree face. That gives me over to the right, guarantees it starting to the right and drawing to the flag, for example, but not overdrawing, right? So it's okay, 50% is okay. I would err just slightly closer to the path, because to hit a functional draw, it's got to start to the right, which means the face is pointed to the right, not left. Like people want to think just rotate the face. No, the face has got to be to the right. It's got to start there and work towards the flag, but not go past the flag. So if I get too big a differential of those two vectors, where the club's going, where the face is pointed, I'm going to start curving this ball too much. So I would say it's an okay rule. I tend to have the face just slightly more than that.
Awesome.
For my liking. Right.
Perfect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining our live webinar on Pro Package, and check your emails for a special unique code that you'll be able to use for a discount on Pro Package or your Mevo Plus. Grant, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
I know we all benefited from your knowledge, and we can apply that same techniques and knowledge to our own games to see an improvement from our coaching, fitting, or overall improvement. So thank you so much, Grant.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for watching.